seconds, moments. There we go. Bloop. Recording. Is my volume okay? Can you hear me all right? Yep. Okay. And let me kick it up so that we can hear you. And that's something else I forgot to do. So I'm going to start in the room, just so you're aware. Don't forget to pick these up. Heart of Darkness, The Hate You Give. Okay. They are, when you come into the IMC, they're on top of a bookshelf. They're on top of one of the bookshelves for the Rosewater books. I think it's the Rosewater books. Make sure that you pick up the AP Lit books and not the English 11 books that they decided that they were going to put side by side, which I would discourage. But you know, that's what they did. And the reason I would discourage it is not because of you, but because of my English 11 students who don't pay attention. So, not to be rude, but they don't, if I'm being honest. And I'm sorry about the tactile quality of the cover that you can hear it. Like it's, I don't know, there's like a graininess. Some people like it. If, in terms of these books, you've got a sibling who's taken the class before, this is a different edition. And so you don't want to necessarily rely on theirs. There's some unique features to it that were appealing when we ordered it. And so, yeah, I like them. An introduction by someone and some supplementary essays at the back of that. And then in terms of like when we're going to start reading, it'll be, so the Heart of Darkness, it is a dense and chewy text. And so as a result of that, we just kind of want it to be in hand prior to spring break, so that if you want to, you know, crack it open over spring break, you're certainly welcome to. Or, you know, if you're looking for just some reading for over spring break. And then The Hate You Give, I'm really hopeful that we're going to be able to tackle it, but it's going to be right around the time of AP exams, and so I certainly want to be mindful of that. Luckily, it'll be a light read, and so maybe it'll be something that, I don't know, you can knock out. I think, do we get, is there just like a random day in May that we have off? I feel like there is. But so, yeah, I'm hopeful about being able to do some things with The Hate You Give, but we're going to have to kind of see how things plan out. I don't want to, you know, crush you. That's never my goal. So.
We have Memorial Day off in May.
Really, there's not. Okay, I thought there was. Well, so it's an election day thing, and so I guess there's no primary, and which makes sense. You know, we just had an election after all. So. With all that, in terms of first, actually, before even getting into the Tempest, do you have questions about research? Are there particular struggles? I've not looked at what you submitted in terms of the discussion, and I intend to do that before our next class period, which will be a work day. But is there anything that you feel that you're particularly struggling with that I might be able to help you with? Does anybody feel like they're stuck in the mud or their steering has gone awry, as I fear mine is starting in my car? My steering is actually feeling like it's a little wonky. I need to get that checked out. I have an appointment, don't worry. But it's a ways away. If my wheel suddenly falls off. Nothing? Okay, all right. Then Act 4 and Act 5 of The Tempest. Or, Act 3 questions, too. Any questions about The Tempest? What the heck? Any at all? What kinds of things are you wondering? Yeah.
So on page 79, someone had mentioned layout just being there for 3 hours. Has this only taken place?
Isn't that interesting? Yeah, page 79. Oh, okay. If thou beest Prospero, give us particulars of thy preservation. How thou hast met us here, whom 3 hours since were wracked upon this shore, where I have lost, how sharp the point of this remembrance is, my dear son Ferdinand. And so it might be maybe a little bit longer because of the sleep, the enchanted sleep, but not much. It seems to conflict a little bit with what Prospero said all the way back in Act 1, Scene 2 to Ariel. But there hasn't been, like Ferdinand, we've not had an image of Ferdinand falling asleep at any point. And he might be kind of the measuring stick by which we kind of identify the amount of time. But when Ferdinand, or not Ferdinand, I just saw his name, and that must be it. Page 18? No, I think it's 17. No, maybe it's 16. Aha, yes. What is the time of the day? Very top of the page, past the mid-season. At least 2 glasses. So it's at least 2 o'clock. The time twixt 6 and now must by us both be spent most preciously. And so if it's 2 o'clock, the time between 6 o'clock and now. So he seems to only be giving himself like 4 hours. Is there more toil, since thou dost give me pains? Let me remember thee what thou hast promised, which is not yet performed me. How now, moody? What is it thou canst demand? My liberty before the time be out no more. Blah, 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 blah. And then, let's see, on 18, they've come to, an agreement. I thank thee, master. If thou more murmurst, I will rend an oak and peg thee in his knotty entrails till thou hast howled away 12 winters. Pardon, master, I will be correspondent to command and do my spriting gently. Do so, and after 2 days I will discharge thee. So, why the 2 days after having established the 4 hours? And so ultimately that may be the product of, kind of to give himself some wiggle room in case this plan does not work out. It's an odd sort of thing, but and an oddly specific. Why that span of time? Which makes me wonder, is that biblical in some way? The crucifixion, it is finished at 3 p.m., is that right? So why 6? Does it start at 3? Since he says it's at least 2 past the midseason, which would be noon, at least 2 glasses. But yeah. So I don't know. I feel like there might be something, but I don't quite know what that is. Other questions? It's a good one that I don't really have an answer to. But yeah, 3 hours. Which, magic. But the length of a play. So, and while you're thinking of other questions, I'm actually going to look it up. Play's action takes place in real time during one day. So that's, it's certainly an important element. One of the things that, if we start to think, how long has Prospero been there? 12 years. How long was Ariel in the tree? 12 years. So we've got these, lengthy periods of time where these key characters are imprisoned. And this liberation within the span of 3 hours, the condensation of time, the tightening of it all, the transformation that Prospero undergoes. From the very beginning, he indicates no harm, and no harm will come to these individuals. And so what is it his plan for revenge all along to forgive? And is that not the sweetest act of revenge? What do you think of that? How is it that forgiveness is an act of revenge?
It makes you the big person and it makes them feel guilty. It's like they did something obviously wrong and then you're just like forgiving them and not letting it affect you anymore.
Right, yeah.
When people do stuff to like annoy you, they want like an effect.
Right, absolutely. And, ultimately, is Antonio ever bothered? No. But it does allow Prospero to be, much bigger. Other questions, other things that you're wondering about. Do Stefano and Trinculo, do they need to exist in the play? Do they even need to be there? Do we need Caliban?
I think Caliban's important. He shows like the contrast between Ariel and how they're both servants to Prospero, but they're like they act way differently about it and they're also treated way differently.
Yeah. Do we need that assassination plot against Prospero? Is that a necessary element?
I think it helps us understand Caliban.
Okay.
We're saying Caliban's needed then.
What does it teach us about Caliban? So then we would need those other two guys. Because Caliban, he's not willing to do the actual deed, which suggests something about him.
And also Caliban and Prospero, they have a lot of similarities. Because Prospero was like gonna be king or whatever, and then he got like dethroned. And the same thing is kind of true in Caliban. Like on that island, he was kind of like in charge.
Right.
And then this other random guy comes, and then all of a sudden he's a servant now. And so I feel like Prospero seems to really hate him, but I feel like he should relate with him more than he does. Because like they kind of have the same story.
Yeah, that's true. A parallel story between Caliban and Prospero. What other sorts of things are you wondering? Lots of concern about mental health. Which Gonzalo recognizes. Gonzalo is this important calming influence.
So at the end, a little epilogue that Prospero like gives.
Uh-huh.
Is he basically asking for applause at the end? Like
Yes.
So he's like addressing the audience?
Yes.
Okay.
That's exactly what's happening. And let me see if I can find that again real quick. So we've got, there it is. Am I showing the right thing? Why is that not showing up? Oh, that would be why. Aha, that's why. Let's see here. Why is it? Huh. Maybe this. Maybe I'll do this. See if this works. I gotta move them over. This is not gonna work. I hate it when that happens. All right, let me try this. Let's try this. This might work. Is it on its way? It's loading. Yay, yay, it loaded. All right. Okay, shift them, move them. And where did they go? Aha. There you are. Goodness, I've got way too many windows open, let alone tabs. All right, so back when we were reading Hag's Feet, I offered this to you folks. And let's see here. At the very end, I gotta go way, way down. Where is that? So Prospero's, there it is. Okay. So Hagseed concludes with Miranda's release, an event that is equal parts exorcism and apotheosis. And that's the creation of a god-like figure. At the risk of trivializing Felix's breakthrough, we must observe that the novel itself does not end there. So Hagseed does not strictly end at Felix's release of Miranda. Why did I not bring a Hagseed with me? Oh, well. Is there? I've actually have a box in that cabinet as well. So the final words of Hagseed in the epilogue is, to the elements be free, he says to her, and finally she is. Okay. And then Margaret Atwood presents us with her summary of the Tempest, the original. So at the risk of trivializing Felix's breakthrough, so those final words, to the elements be free, and she is, we must observe that the novel itself does not end there, strictly speaking. Immediately following Felix's release of Spirit Miranda at the close of the epilogue, the novel includes a section titled The Tempest, the Original. The placement of this section, which consists of a brief summary of Shakespeare's play, is striking. By contrast, in Jeanette Winterson's The Gap of Time, the first book in the Hogarth Shakespeare series, a summary of The Winter's Tale is included at the very beginning of the novel, before Winterson commences her cover version. Presumably, inserting a summary at the outset refreshes readers on the specifics of Shakespeare's work, so that they can more fully appreciate the subtleties of the retelling that follows. Other entries in the series, including Howard Jacobson's Shylock Is My Name, Ann Tyler's Vinegar Girl, and Edward St. Aubyn's Dunbar, entirely omit dedicated summaries of their corresponding Shakespeare plays. Of course, Atwood's coda also strays further from the structure of the original play, which has no text after Prospero's epilogue. What might appear to be an arbitrarily placed paratext. So this is our author speculating. Instead becomes an important addendum to Hagseed's conclusion. The summary appends an epilogue to the epilogue. So now we've got something extra, and it does so in a way that uncomfortably recalls Felix's final lesson to the Fletcher players. As Felix puts it, Prospero is imprisoned by the play, and he wants to avoid indefinitely reenacting its events, so he has to ask for the applause, especially the negative emotions they dredge up. Prospero fears a theatrical equivalent to Groundhog Day, which ultimately does happen because he's going to have to perform the show again the following night. And the summary at the end of Atwood's novel realizes that fear. As soon as readers finish Felix's story, the play seemingly starts over. The moment of Miranda's liberation strikes with finality, yet the very next page finds readers caught in a tempest once again. This narrative tactic recalls other Atwood novels with their open endings that resist conclusiveness, offering instead hesitation. And for those of you who've done, I think we had somebody read some other Atwood beyond The Handmaid's Tale, and some of you may be able to kind of speak to this. Offering instead hesitation, absence, or silence while hovering on the verge of new possibilities. But it also qualifies our response to this novel's ultimate representation of trauma. Furthermore, Atwood ends her summary of The Tempest by saying Prospero tells the audience that since his magic spells have now been overthrown, he must remain imprisoned on the island unless the audience pardons him and sets him free by using its own magic to applaud the play. This synopsis is certainly faithful to the play's epilogue, which Atwood elsewhere refers to as perhaps the most puzzling ending to any Shakespeare play, but it lacks the triumphant closure of the novel's epilogue. Shakespeare, through Prospero, invites the audience to applaud his work. So Shakespeare He is also inviting the audience to applaud the work. But Atwood utterly suspends Prospero in this moment of uncertainty and expectation. The story of the Tempest has already repeated itself after the novel proper. And there is no indication that the sequence will end even if Atwood's book must. Like Miranda, Felix is free, but Prospero remains a prisoner to Shakespeare's cycle. He persists as survivor and emblem of trauma. Yet if Prospero's prison is a work that he himself has composed, Prospero and Shakespeare together enchant and entrap future generations. Enduring works like those of Shakespeare insistently confront performers, audiences, and authors with occasion to recall and possibly redress their deepest losses and failures, the things of darkness that they acknowledge to be theirs, which is Hagseed, Caliban, the claim of Prospero of Caliban. So does that begin to kind of make sense a little bit differently? Yeah, where does he claim him? 85? Yes. Antonio, speaking of Caliban, one of them is plain fish and no doubt marketable. Mark but the badges of these men, my lords, then say if they be true. This misshapen knave, his mother was a witch, and one so strong that could control the moon, make flows and ebbs, and deal in her command without her power. These three have robbed me, and this demi-devil, for he's a bastard one, had plotted with them to take my life. Two of these fellows you must know and own. This thing of darkness I acknowledge mine. Caliban is fearful that he'll be pinched to death, but we don't have a clear sense of really what happens. Top of 86, he is as disproportioned in his manners as in his shape. Go, sirrah, to my cell. Take with you your companions. As you look to have my pardon, trim it handsomely. That I will, and I'll be wise hereafter, and seek for grace. What a thrice double ass was I to take this drunkard for a god and worship this dull fool. Go to away. Go clean up my space, and I'll think about whether or not I'm going to forgive you. Is there for forgiveness for Caliban? What do you think? Is there? Does he forgive Caliban? Despite all of its problems, there are some wonderful parts to this play. Think about those prisons.
I have a question about Sebastian and Tricula. So did Prospero orchestrate them meeting with Caliban, kind of like he orchestrated the other people to meet?
Boy, that's a good question. I don't know. I would imagine so, because everything seems particularly controlled. So it goes along with the notion, and I sent you guys an email over the weekend, Friday, as a matter of fact, that utilized the phrase "everything happens for a reason." And that is when you're traumatized, when you're experiencing, when you're in the throes of, the thing that is causing you distress, to hear that is the least helpful thing in the world. It is incredibly frustrating. I think I've shared with you that my son recently broke up with his girlfriend, and he is struggling. And despite my own experiences, and because of my own experiences, I know that there is nothing that I can tell him that will bring him comfort. Nothing. There's no satisfying answer. She expressed that she needs to figure some things out. And his initial reaction to that, his initial response to that was, then why can't we stay together until you figure those things out? And that would be even more torturous. And so I think a lot of the happenstances that occur over the course of the Tempest suggest, and you don't necessarily have to be, religious to kind of see how this plays out, but there seems to be a guiding hand that is overseeing all of these steps. That there is very much an individual or something, some force that is putting the pieces into play. In a similar way to, and unfortunately I don't have it marked, to a moment in Hagseed where Felix, it's a very symbolic sort of moment. Is it pre-goblins, post-goblins? No, it's later. No. Is it after the bath? I feel like it's after the bath, but I don't remember where the bath is. No. Oh, well, certainly this. When we've got, our goddesses, Felix refers to those who are controlling the goddesses as puppeteers. Are we merely puppets? How much control do we have? Are we pawns? So that what I'm looking for is that scene where he plays chess with Miranda. Or maybe is that like way early? Maybe it's way early. He teaches her to play chess. And that notion of feeling like you're being moved around the board. Yeah, I can't find it. I'm spending too much time looking for it. Is that intentional? It certainly is intentional on the part of Shakespeare to have them, happen upon one another. And so is that part of Prospero's plan? And I think it's fair to say, but where, let's see here. Our first meeting of the three, there is no inclusion of Ariel. But the very next time they come together, page 51, Act 3, Scene 2. Servant monster, drink to me. My man monster hath drowned his tongue in sack. Thou shalt be my lieutenant monster or my standard. Page 53. Caliban has asked Stefano to bite Trinculo, bite him to death, I prithee. Trinculo, keep a good tongue in your head. If you prove a mutineer, the next tree. The poor monster is my subject, and he shall not suffer indignity. I thank my noble lord. Wilt thou be pleased to hearken once again to the suit I made to thee? Merry will I kneel, and repeat it I will stand, and so shall Trinculo. As I told thee before, I am subject to a tyrant. So Ariel is now here. A sorcerer that by his cunning hath cheated me of this island. Thou liest, says Ariel. Thou liest, thou jesting monkey thou. I would my valiant master would destroy thee. I do not lie. So Caliban thinking that it's Trinculo. It's kind of like that, the whole business with Peter Pan and Captain Hook and Smee, and Peter Pan is throwing his voice to Smee, making Smee think that he's actually Captain Hook. You know that moment that I'm talking about? For those of you who know Peter Pan. Trinculo, if you trouble him any more in his tail, by this hand I will supplant some of your teeth. Why, I said nothing. Mum then, and no more. Proceed. I say by sorcery he got this isle. So Ariel, is in on this and is trying to make things difficult. And everything that Ariel knows, Prospero seems to know. And then, of course, 55. Line 110. Monster, I will kill this man. His daughter and I will be king and queen, save our graces. And Trinculo and thyself shall be viceroys. Dost thou like the plot, Trinculo? Excellent. Give me thy hand. I am sorry I beat thee, but while thou livest, keep a good tongue in thy head. Within this half hour will he be asleep. Wilt thou destroy him then? I, on mine honor. This will I tell my master. So, either Ariel knows enough to kind of observe what everybody is going on, or, Prospero specifically was like, why don't you go see what those guys are up to? Yeah. I mean, and that notion lends a little bit more credence, again, to the idea of, and did I mention this the last time that we actually got to talk about the play? The id, the ego, and the superego. So we allow our id to be fed by other things, other vices, and that, those are things that can, certainly harm us. Not that, Shakespeare knows of the id, the ego, and the superego, but he certainly has a good sense of basic psychology prior to the field of psychology. Other questions? Dylan, what are you drinking? Is that coffee? Water?
Yeah, it's coffee.
Coffee. Okay. What do you put in it?
I don't know. My brother's girlfriend made it. She works at Starbucks, so she kind of just whipped something up for me.
Oh, that's very nice.
Yeah.
My dad has a whole bar. They removed a three-quarter bath. They removed an entire three-quarter bathroom in their house so that my dad could create a coffee bar because he roasts his own beans. So, but anyway, What else? Other questions? Other thoughts? Yeah, Nicole.
Is there any significance that when they come, when Stefano Trinculo and Calvin come to attempt to murder Prospero, that he sends the goblins after them instead of confronting them himself?
Well, he's a busy man. He is a busy guy. He's got all these other things that are going on. Yeah, I mean, it's I think a big part of it is what Caliban totally expects, and ultimately, hounds them into, a place where they're going to be miserable. The sending of the goblins is, I think, a big part of it is representative of guilt, an attempt to. So there's a Greek trilogy called the whole thing, the Oresteia. And so we start off with Agamemnon returning from war and his wife killing him, his wife and her lover killing him. And ultimately, in revenge for Agamemnon's sacrifice of their daughter before they went off to fight the Trojan War. And then the next play in the sequence is their daughter and son planning to kill their mother. And then the final play in the trilogy is the trial that the son is put on for actually plunging the knife into his mother. And the commission of matricide, and for a significant chunk of the play, he is hounded by hounds, literally, like these figures that come barking at him, and so on and so forth. And so there's certainly, this seems to be heavily influenced by a lot of Greek tragedy, because we've got this high figure who's brought down low, and the various punishments and so on and so forth. But it does not end as a tragedy typically does. So. What else?
On page 76, why does Prospero call his magic rough magic and then say he'll break his staff?
He's done. That'll be it. Let's see here. It's a beautiful scene. So let's start with the beginning of the scene. Act 5, Scene 1, page 74. Enter Prospero in his magic robes. Now does my project gather to a head. It's all coming together. I love it when a plan comes together. My charms crack not. My spirits obey. And time goes upright with his carriage. How's the day? So, this importance of time and the passage of time. On the 6th hour, at which time, my lord, you said our work should cease. We're at the time when you said we were going to be done. Don't forget what you promised. Although he also promised 2 days. I did say so when first I raised the Tempest. Say, my spirit, how fares the king and his followers? Confined together, in the same fashion as you gave in charge, just as you left them. All prisoners, sir. In the lime grove which weather fends your cell. So I'm wondering, part of me wonders, is the 6 o'clock hour, is that because of an approximation to sunset? That, the turning to, getting close to sunset. And just saying 6 o'clock hour, it feels like a thing. I don't know. They cannot budge till your release. The king, his brother, and yours abide, all three distracted, and the remainder mourning over them, brimful of sorrow and dismay. Everybody's just miserable. But chiefly, him that you term, sir, the good old lord of Gonzalo, has tears run down his beard like winter's drops from eaves of reeds. Your charm so strongly works him, that if you now beheld them, your affections would become tender. if you were to see them right now, you would weep. Dost thou think so, spirit? Mine would, sir, were I human, and mine shall. Hast thou, which art but air, a touch, a feeling of their afflictions, and shall not myself one of their kind, that relish all as sharply passion as they, be kindlier moved than thou art? Though with their high wrongs I am struck to the quick, yet with my nobler reason, 'gainst my fury do I take part. The rarer action is in virtue than in vengeance. They being penitent, the sole drift of my purpose doth extend not a frown further. If they truly feel as bad as you say they feel, we're done. Go release them, Ariel. My charms I'll break, their senses I'll restore, and they shall be themselves. I'll fetch them, sir. Ye elves of hills, brooks, standing lakes, and groves, and ye that on the sands with printless foot do chase the ebbing Neptune, and do fly him when he comes back. You demi-puppets that by moonshine do the green sour ringlets make, whereof the ewe not bites, and you whose pastime is to make midnight mushrooms. What a great word. That rejoice to hear the solemn curfew, by whose aid, weak masters though ye be, I have bedimmed the noontide sun, called forth the mutinous winds, and twixt the green sea and the azured vault set roaring war. To the dread rattling thunder have I given fire, and rifted Jove's stout oak with his own bolt. The strong based promontory have I made shake, and by the spurs plucked up the pine and cedar. Graves at my command have waked their sleepers, oped and let them forth by my so potent art. But this rough magic I here abjure. And when I have required some heavenly music, which even now I do to work mine end upon their senses, that this airy charm is for, I'll break my staff, bury it certain fathoms in the earth, and deeper than did ever plummet sound, I'll drown my book. This is it. This is the end. So he's previewing for us. I've done all these things, but we're giving up everything here. I've done everything that I could. And so the question is, why do that? Yeah.
Was it because he kind of got the throne? Possibly, I'm not sure why, but could have been why, because he's focused so much on magic, he kind of neglected his duties as major or whatever he was, and so it kind of magic ruined his life, and then he used it to get revenge, I guess, and then he's finally done. He's like, okay, I want my power back, and I want to be where I was before all this kind of thing.
Yeah, I think that's a big part of it. I mean, I'm starting as we're looking at this, I can't help but think of WandaVision. For those of you who've watched WandaVision. And at the same time, if I'm not thinking of WandaVision, I'm also partially conscious of Logan. So the last of the Wolverine movies. We have a character in Logan named Caliban. And, we've got this figure who, recognizes a need to put an end to things. Somebody who is, imprisoned as a consequence of his own nature, and is seeking release. And I think our biggest message overall is that we hold the key to our own cell. And so, that magic may have been the prison that he put himself in. This is, it's pointed to, the play itself is pointed to as Shakespeare's last. And so it's, in some ways, it is Shakespeare saying that he's done. I'm finished. I've not spend as much time with my family as maybe I should have. Spent too much time, messing around and doing other things. So there's certainly, I think, are those elements. At the same time, there are moments in our own lives where we recognize that it's time to be done with something. There's a passage that we looked at, at the very beginning of the year, and it is biblical. And again, I'm not trying to convert anybody or anything, but it's an important sort of notion. But we want the whole. Let's go with, there we go. And this is going to come back too for Heart of Darkness, believe it or not. If I speak in the tongues of men or of angels, but do not have love, and there's a lot of love in this play. That moment, the way he talks about his daughter. Page 63, top of Act 4. If I have too austerely punished you, your compensation makes amends. For I have given you here a third of mine own life, or that for which I live. But once again I tender to thy hand. All thy vexations were but my trials of thy love. Are you worthy? And thou hast strangely stood the test. Here afore heaven I ratify this my rich gift, O Ferdinand. Do not smile at me that I boast her off. For thou shalt find she will outstrip all praise and make it halt behind her. I'm only a resounding gong or a clanging cymbal. If I have the gift of prophecy and can fathom all mysteries and all knowledge, is that Prospero? And if I have a faith that can move mountains, he could move mountains. But do not have love, I am nothing. If I give all I possess to the poor and give over my body to hardship that I may boast, but do not have love, I gain nothing. What is love? Well, love is patient. Love is kind. It does not envy. It does not boast. It is not proud. Pride would be him continuing to punish these people. It does not dishonor others. It is not self-seeking. It is not easily angered. It keeps no record of wrongs. Is that why the throwing away of the book? I'll drown my book. Does the book contain, the list of all the wrongs that he has suffered? I mean, it's also his magic book. Love does not delight in evil, but rejoices with the truth. It always protects, always trusts, always hopes, always perseveres. Love never fails. But where there are prophecies, they will cease. Where there are tongues, they will be stilled. Where there is knowledge, it will pass away. Love lasts. These other things don't. For we know in part, and we prophesy in part. Think of the last time that you actually learned something new, or learned something new that challenged something that you previously believed. And that shaking of your soul, of the recognition that, oh my God, I've been wrong about that all this time. We know in part, and we prophesy in part. But when completeness comes, what is in part disappears. When I was a child, I talked like a child, I thought like a child, I reasoned like a child. When I became a man, I put the ways of childhood behind me. So the knowledge, perhaps, that he has from the magic, is there a recognition that that is not all there is to know in the world? To prophesy is wizardry. When I was a child, I talked like a child, I thought like a child, I reasoned like a child. When I became a man, I put the ways of childhood behind me. For now we see only a reflection as in a mirror. And Miranda actually says something similar to that in Act 3? I think that's in Act 3. It might be Act 2. No, it might be Act 3. Yep, Act 3, page 49. As Prospero is, watching it all, very top of 49, poor worm, thou art infected. Oh, my baby girl. You're in love with somebody. I know. You look wearily. No, noble mistress, 'tis fresh morning with me. As he's like straining with this pile of wood that he's carrying. When you are by at night, I do beseech you chiefly that I might set it in my prayers. What is your name? Tell me your name so I can pray for you. Miranda. Oh, my father, I have broke your hest to say so. I shouldn't have told you that. Admired Miranda. Indeed, the top of admiration, worth what's dearest to the world. Full many a lady I have eyed with best regard. I've seen a lot of girls, and they were really attractive. And many a time the harmony of their tongues hath into bondage brought my too diligent ear. For several virtues have I liked several women. Never any with so full soul, but some defect in her did quarrel with the noblest grace she owed, and put it to the foil. But you, oh, you, so perfect and so peerless, are created of every creature's best. I do not know one of my sex. No woman's face remember, save from my glass mine own. Nor have I seen more that I may call men than you, good friend, and my dear father. How features are abroad I am skillless of, but by my modesty, the jewel in my dower, I would not wish any companion in the world but you. Nor can imagination form a shape besides yourself to like of, but I prattle something too wildly, and my father's precepts I therein do forget. You're making me forget everything that my father told me. For now we see only a reflection as in a mirror. Then we shall see face to face. Now I know in part. Then I shall know fully, even as I am fully known. And now these three remain, faith, hope, and love, but the greatest of these is love. The Tempest is all about love. Because of that notion of forgiveness. No harm. No harm. Other questions?
So I was looking up stuff and researching it and everything, and I read something about how at the end when they're playing a chess game between Ren and it was like they were having an argument or something, and it kind of apparently was like foreshadowing that maybe things weren't as happy as they seemed. Because the chess game, the whole point of it is you're trying to defeat the king on the other team or whatever.
Sure.
And it's kind of like how Prospero was dethroned from his ruling. And also, they got into an argument, when they were playing the chess game or something, a little argument. And it kind of showed that maybe this whole idea the Tempest was brought to replay. And then you said something earlier about how it seemed like Prospero was gonna start over again. And so is that what the whole thing is about? All this good stuff that happens towards the end, how he's forgiving everybody, getting rid of his magic, just for it to all happen again?
That is very much a possibility. Life works in cycles. And frequently if we don't learn the lesson from the previous cycle, we may repeat the lesson all over again immediately after or at some other point down the road. And so there is certainly a likelihood. This is a snapshot of a single day in time. And so that's one of the reasons why time is so important to it all. That Ariel is in the tree for 12 years, that Prospero and Miranda are on the island for 12 years, that it's the completion of a cycle. Now we've got a day, an afternoon, for that matter, and 3 hours. And so that, we get, it's a magic number. 3 is a magic number. And the significance of that, I mean, it might be the death and resurrection. Maybe that's why we get the 3 hours within the Christian tradition of 3 days. So this cycle of things, this is just one snapshot of a moment in time for the time being. Other questions? Other things that you might be wondering about?
I can't remember, did it say anything like in the Tempest about Sparrow's wife or Miranda's mother or anything? I know it talked about it taxi.
Very underdeveloped in the way that she is in Hagseed as well. I mean, she's mentioned, sure, but no other kinds of.
Because didn't he like kind of say at the end when he was giving the whole speech about what he's done with his music? Didn't he say something about like graves and like raising people from them or something? So is that why he like got so devoted to magic? Maybe like a desperate way to like get his wife back?
It could be. And that may inform sort of the characterization of Felix and his desire to, kind of have Miranda hanging around even though she's actually dead. And, and that's a big part of the notion of magic, I guess. To open the graves and have the dead reanimated. It is, for those of you who are familiar with Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone, the Sorcerer's Stone, that's the stone. The notion of alchemy is not only the turning of elements into gold, but it's also that kind of that idea of, if we can do this through, whatever that magic is, then it's the bringing of the dead to life. And you might think of your Frankenstein as well. That Victor, as a consequence of his mother's untimely death, decides to pursue alchemy and reanimate dead tissue into a living creature. And so those early elements of why someone would get into dark magic, rough magic, and again, WandaVision. I think there's a lot of potentially interesting kind of links that might exist. The more I think about it, I can't stop thinking about WandaVision now. Oops. Yeah.
Did you like that show?
I did. Yeah.
I thought it was good up until like the whole witch thing started.
Really?
And then I kind of got confused
Okay.
at that whole thing. But I thought it was good.
Yeah, I mean, so that's where we start to see this as we get into the whole witch thing.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And one time in class, he said something about Shakespeare in the line, like, world is a stage and all players are really actors, and then like Vision says that in the show,
Mm-hmm.
and it made me remember this class.
Yeah, I mean, it's striking as I think about, and now I'm reading that they talk about WandaVision as a study in grief and how we handle grief and negotiate grief. And the Tempest is about grief. And you guys, you're experiencing grief, reasonably. I think you should be. The thoughts of what your senior year ought to have been, and the reality of what it actually is. There's a lot of kind of unfairness to it, but at the same time, you're learning lessons along the way, and hopefully, the lessons that you are learning, you'll be able to apply what you've learned as you proceed into whatever your freshman year of college is going to look like. And there's no rule book in terms of what that's going to look like. My daughter, she was accepted into the honors college, and I got home yesterday, and my wife said, "Would you talk to Abby about the honors college?" And so I texted her and I said, "Why does your mother want me to talk to you about the honors college?" And she says, because I think it's a waste of time. That was her response to me. And I said, "Well, would you do me a favor and investigate what the benefits would be prior to deciding that it's going to be a waste of time? Talk to your advisor, whatever it is you need to do." And then as I thought further about it, I just kind of Googled what the honors program benefits would be for her at the school. And I got to tell you, nothing but a place to live and more work. And she ought to have had like some sort of honors, what's the word I want? Mentor, some sort of honors mentor who was an upperclassman. But she's had no contact with anybody. And because of kind of this brave new world that we're in. And that's what the notion of the brave new world is. Miranda is being introduced to, this world that she has no experience of. What's going to happen between she and Ferdinand? Yeah, they're married, but are they really married? And so what happens when they get back to Italy? And he's, with other women. And there's, the recognition that she sees all these new men. Let's see here. Where is that? It's a big surprise to her. Page 81. Yeah, so there they are playing the chess. "Sweet Lord, you play me false. No, my dearest love, I would not for the world. Yes, for a score of kingdoms you should wrangle, and I would call it fair play. If this prove a vision of the island, one dear son shall I twice lose, a most high miracle. Though the seas threaten, they are merciful. I have cursed them without cause." That's something to pay attention to, too. Though the seas threaten, they are merciful. That link of both the positive and the negative, that those exist at the same time. I have cursed them without cause. Now all the blessings of a glad father compass thee about. Arise and say how thou camest here. Oh, wonder, how many goodly creatures are there here? Look at all these men. How beauteous mankind is. Oh, brave new world that has such people in it. 'Tis new to thee. So it's, what's new is old again. What's old is new again. There's lots kind of happening there. Throughout the whole thing. Again, it has its problems, but this is a wonderful snapshot of how we deal with the things that we deal with in our lives, despite its imperfections, which is life. Life is imperfect. Nothing goes according to plan. There's a tiny part of me that's wondering, should we expect a 2-week virtual quarantine after spring break? Is that something that we should actually expect to happen? Well, and I'm hearing Michigan numbers are going up, which is, I don't know. I don't know. Nothing goes according to plan. Plan for things and plan for those things to go wrong.
Isn't Edwards or how because so many other so many people got it?
So last week they had to shut down and go all virtual after their second dose of their vaccine. But I don't know if that became like any kind of permanent thing. So, yeah. All right. So just a few minutes left, and I want to share with you, wherever it is. Where is it? Where are you? There you are. So looking at the agenda, and we didn't talk about any of that stuff, and it's not a big deal. It was just an exercise that I thought about us doing. In terms of your homework, though, there's 4 different things. Certainly be working on researching and writing. I've got a lot of students in a bit of a tizzy, concerned about there's not going to be enough time. If you're a student who feels like there's not going to be enough time, do some more stuff outside of class. I have provided the link to the Tempest video if you feel you need additional supports just to kind of watch it and see it. And there are, other versions I think that exist online, but I really like the special effects of that one, to be honest. I'm not going to lie about that. There is a different lens that I provide you for in Roman numeral 3, and so that's, consider it. It's not something that that I'm going to tie you to, but certainly take a look at it. And you are going to be writing about the Tempest 2 class periods from now, and there will be a variety of choices available to you. And I'll keep in mind the kinds of things that we've sort of talked about, and a revision opportunity for the independent reading essays. That will be due on Friday of next week, no later than Friday of next week. And embedded in here, I've got a interpretation of the Tempest as a whole. Just one. It's not tied to any prompt, but let me propose this. Through his characterization of Prospero and the development of Prospero's capacity for forgiveness, William Shakespeare reveals mankind's complex relationship with God and their expectations, mankind's expectations of the source of cruelty, mercy, and forgiveness. What do you think I'm going to talk about in my essay?
Like plot for revenge and how we punish them.
Certainly I'm going to be talking about that. But where does cruelty, mercy, and forgiveness come from? Where do we assume it comes from, and where does it actually come from? Any thoughts on that? Any idea where I'm trying to lead you?
The Bible?
From ourselves. Frequently, the cruelest people is being cruel to yourself. And ultimately, we have to give ourselves mercy and forgive ourselves for the things that we've done and the things that we think that we've done. I think that's one of the most important kinds of messages that comes out of the play. We've got to be able to forgive ourselves for things. And it comes, it certainly is hag seed as well. All right. Any final questions? Certainly send messages. Our next class period is going to be a work day, and I will be available with you unless something bizarre happens, like my wheel falls off. Yeah, so let me know, reach out if you need me. Okay? Take care, gang. What day is today? Thursday? See you Monday.
Wednesday.
Oh, Wednesday. See you Friday.
Thank
Yikes.
you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Hey, Mr. Coffee.
Hey, what?
I was having Chromebook. I've been having issues where it doesn't load. Like it'll load a tab and then it doesn't open it. So that's why I was late for class. I
Okay.
didn't. I emailed you. I just want to make sure you got my attendance and stuff. I
Okay.
just couldn't open. I don't know why. It just like I'll open a tab and then it'll like be white, and then just sit there. I don't know if it's Wi-Fi. It doesn't seem like a Wi-Fi issue because I've been fine once it opens. But
It just might be Chromebook. I did record it.
okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I just want to make sure you got my attendance and stuff too.
Okay.
I was here. I was just like, oh, okay.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you. Have a good day.
All right. You too.
Oh, have a good day.
Thanks. You too.
This Friday, I'm not gonna be in the building, but I'll try and like join the Zoom calls. I have my admitted students day.
Oh,
So I
okay.
have all my virtual meetings for that on Friday.
All right.
But they're like weird times, so I'll try and like just